Welcome to the Wild Pitch Podcast, hosted by Brian Gales, Jimmy Gales, Brian Dorsey, and Christopher Rojas.
All right, we're back again with another episode of the Wild Pitch Podcast.
Here with a very, very special guest, Michael Gaffney, and today is going to be, I guess, New York Tech heavy. We have a lot of Bears in the room. Brian was a teammate of Michael. Chris and I coached against Mike in the college level. I think we're going to get into that a little bit, bust some chops and go back and forth. But Michael himself was a great shortstop at New York Tech. And, Mike, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming out. It's always great having a guy of your skill set here. So
thanks for having me. And I'm sure you guys ran out of a lot of options in order to invite me on this.
Well, what happened
went through the whole contact list, I'm sure.
Yeah, we had the last two were big league guys that actually played in the big league. So we're going back to the minor league route,
Yeah, well, let's add a little bit more about Mike's background. He was drafted by the Royals, right? Made it to Double-A. Coached at Post or LIU, right? They got rid of the Post.
Yeah.
And now the associate head coach there.
Right, and then Mike has the distinction. He got drafted twice. I mean, it's hard enough to get drafted once. So, Mike, you get drafted your junior year at a New York Tech, the 38th round, I believe?
It was the 49th.
49th to the Marlins, right?
Yeah.
Now, for that process, what made you take that gamble that you were going to get drafted again?
So it's something I look back now, and I'm shocked that I actually made that decision to go back to school. Because I think if I was advising someone now, I would say that's your only shot to play professional baseball. And then my father was actually telling me the same thing. But and Brian definitely remembers this as vividly as I do. That year, my junior year, your senior year, Brian, we were pretty loaded with talent. So we had scouts every day coming to practice games. I mean, I remember running the 60-yard dashes in the outfield during practice. And we did it so much, we started getting spoiled and kind of taking it for granted. That's how often these guys were around. So when I left to go to summer ball in Lima, Ohio, Brian played with me the summer before there. When I went out there, I was convinced I'm getting drafted. I'm visiting for a week. I'm going to practice with this team. I'm going to get drafted. I'm going to go home. So I packed my baseball stuff. I didn't even bring a jock strap or a cup or anything. So the first day of the draft goes by and the day before I had all these scouts call me. I had a really good year my junior year. So I had all these scouts saying, we're going to take it the first day. Great. First day goes by. I don't get picked. And I'm seeing guys, as we all have experienced, guys who we feel are better than getting picked ahead of us or before we're selected. So that second day rolls around, and I pull into I think it was like a Big Five Sporting Goods, which is out in the Midwest, and to get a cup because our first exhibition game was that night, and pick up some batting gloves, like things I neglected to bring, and I got a call in my
neglected, or you thought you were big time already? You thought you were too good for everybody else.
Hey, Mike, let's you keep talking about buying an athletic supporter or a jockstrap or a cup. It's pretty interesting. I never played a game without a cup. And
yeah.
Do you believe not one guy on our team wears one?
I can't fathom it. And these guys don't have the hands we had, Jimmy.
That's right.
And they still don't.
All
right.
Right.
I was in the car and I got a call. It was like the first year I had a cell phone. I got a call from a number. It was the Florida Marlins, and they said, "Hey, we're going to offer you $5,000 in school." And in the 27th round, I was like, "Oh, it's great! I'm getting picked in the 27th round." And I was like, "All right, let me make some calls and let me see if I could accept that." They're like, "Well, there was like 5 minutes because our pick's coming up," and it hit me. I'm like, "Oh, they didn't pick me yet." So I called my dad. My dad said, "Take it." Called Bob Hirschfield, our head coach in college, and he didn't pick up. So I was kind of left and for some reason I called them back. I said, "I can't accept that right now. But if further along in the draft you want to take me, like I might be able to take that, after talking to some people." And that's basically the long story short of it. And after the exhibition game, I came to my car, I had about 50 messages saying that I got drafted.
Yeah, but what were you thinking there?
Not going?
Yeah, not especially.
I'm going to tell you exactly what I was thinking. So they said they'd pay for another year of school and give me $5,000. I wasn't the best student. I had more than a year of school left. Okay, that's one thing. $5,000. When I was talking to these scouts and stuff, they were talking a lot bigger numbers than that. So I felt like five grand, like it doesn't make sense. And
what
then
were they saying before that? How much did they say you were gonna get? Like, what was the slot? I guess
they said that I would be anywhere from 8th to 15th round, and at that point you're talking,
hundreds.
Close to 100. I remember 60 to 80 to 100 was always like what I would hear.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm laughing to myself now. I'm saying these numbers. I end up signing for $1,000 next year.
and a thank you.
Yeah. And then I thought, I'm like, the 49th round, I don't want to be a 49th round. That means I got 40 guys ahead of me. Like I kind of had a mature thought process with that.
So what's interesting, and it's good for like the people that we try to cater to with this podcast, is that you really can't listen to what anyone's telling you as well, right? I mean, so many times everybody gets told these things. You're going to get drafted here. You're going to do this, and even the scout himself doesn't know what the deal is. Right. And then so you took a phone call. You hear 5,000 after hearing 100,000, and you almost missed an opportunity to play pro ball because I mean it is so hard to get drafted in the Northeast, as we know. You know, but yeah.
But I mean, we talk about him getting drafted twice, but the following year, didn't you get hurt also? Like
so 16 games into my senior year, we're playing at Maryland, and I broke my hand. Had to get pins put in my hand. My college career was over, and I don't know if you guys remember this. Hirsch would always make us do all these sprints in the outfield after every game.
Yep.
And we lost like a tough game at Maryland, and I just started finding my swing too. I was like through before that game. I started the year kind of slow, but I started getting in a groove. And I remember running those sprints harder than I ever ran any sprint because I had this adrenaline saying, I can't believe I just passed up an opportunity to play professional baseball. And now, because I knew like my hand was pretty injured. And luckily, the Royals picked me in the 13th round off of my junior year.
Wow.
So basically, they just went off my junior year, which could have been a blessing in disguise because if I didn't have a good senior year, who knows what would have happened anyway.
And you had a pretty sick junior year too, right? You hit 415 your junior year.
Yeah,
that's insane, dude.
And Miami carved me up that last series too. I should have been higher.
Really? Well, where were you going into that series?
I don't remember exactly, but it was like high 420s, maybe 430, and I think I went like 1 for 15 in that series because they just threw me like 2 seamers in, and I just got sawed off all weekend.
Who were you guys facing from that club that was any good? You remember?
Brian, yeah, you probably remember that Kiko or something. There's a Kiko or something like that.
Alonzo? Kiko? No, Kiko. That's the football player.
Chea, something like that.
Yeah, that guy.
It was a couple years before that, I think.
Was the kid the first rounder? They had a first rounder from the Padres that came out of Miami.
Is that Gil?
No, he was before.
Gil was one of the guys. One of those years.
Gil was by the Reds, wasn't he? Wasn't he drafted by the Reds?
Yeah, Reds. I don't think they had anybody crazy. They might have, one guy I think maybe made it to the big leagues with the Tigers. Tom Farmer. Do you guys know that name?
So Brian's saying they didn't have anyone crazy, but I remember every guy they put out on that mound was just humming and throwing the crap out of the ball.
Yeah,
Brian must have had a good series.
Brian
always had a good series. Brian, is that why you didn't think that
Miami was one team, except for the freshman year, I did well against them. But yeah, they were good. But that's what happens, though, right? You go to pro ball, and all of a sudden you look back and like, man, those guys stunk.
I know it is that's the crazy thing.
You get nervous at going into playing Clemson and Miami, and then you're like, well, you know what? We were just as good as those guys,
Yeah. Well, some of you guys were. I mean, that. Mike's junior year, you had the two of you, and then you had Brian Merkel also get drafted, right? And then was Stasio there too?
Yeah, but so Gaffney's sophomore year, so he was a sophomore, and then the juniors, me and Merkel got drafted, and then seniors were Stasio and Nevins.
Oh, right.
But and then you had guys like Goldberg and Mike Rick. Yeah, we were talented.
That's what we're trying to do now with Tech is get it back, and seriously, like we want to get it to that point where, you're producing professional players again. I know that's why I went there personally, just because it was a factory turning out
But
pros.
Jimmy, don't you think it's such a different time though?
Yes, it's completely different. Yes.
And obviously it is a different time, but just the landscape, and because I was trying to do the same thing at Post, and
Right.
it's just I think, first of all, a lot of guys in New York and guys in the Northeast, all the best players, we stayed in the Northeast too.
Right.
We never, and maybe it was just we didn't have the video to send to reach those Southern schools, but also it was something about when we grew up around here, St. John's, New York Tech, like those were the schools that we knew were really good baseball schools. So we knew we didn't have to go too far to get that.
Well, there was a lot of pride when when I got my scholarship offer from New York Tech, I was like, I think personally, that even when you tell people where you're going, there was some, oh wow, that's pretty cool. They got the. Now I think the kids are such up in the clouds with what they're thinking about, and it probably takes a good 10 years to get that feeling back at a school.
Yeah, and I know the draw for me was obviously guys like yourself, Jimmy and Chris, like you guys going on to play pro ball. So they always had that reputation. But then when we went independent, the schedule that we played, some
insane, right?
people would look at our record now and be like, oh, you guys weren't that good. Well, when we're going down every weekend, so we don't have a conference. So everyone's bye weekend, we're going down and playing them. So we have 20 to 25 games that are right in the middle of Power Five's conference season, and we're going down there and trying to stand toe to toe with them. And for the most part, we did stand toe to toe with them. Of course, as you get into the bullpen enough, that's you're not going to win many games. But I always say our starting nine, the nine in the lineup could play with anyone in the country, and that was probably the same when you guys were there too, just a few years before.
I think you guys took it to a different level. I don't think we had the depth that you had. You guys were really like bringing the program to a different level. I mean, you guys mashed. That was a good group.
Our hitting coach, Ray Gianelli, was awesome. And then I think Butch Caulfield said he was the hitting coach a couple of years too.
Oh,
so Gaff, being the head coach at LIU, and now you guys going from Division II to Division I, and I know it was a small sample this year, but did you see a big difference?
So it's that part. It's interesting. Hasn't changed much in my opinion. So the Division I difference is the depth of pitching. So the reason we were very successful at Post the last couple of years, and Jimmy and Chris will attest to this, that our frontline pitching was as good as anybody's. But then after that, there was a drop off. So when it comes to most Division II teams have one or two really good frontline starters, and then maybe their 3 and 4s might not be as good. And then there's even another drop off to the bullpen. In Division I, the depth of pitching is just so different. You're getting every day on the weekend, you're getting a really good pitcher, and even if you get into the bullpen, you're getting someone with a plus pitcher or something of that sort. The other thing is it's a little cleaner defensively. That's where you see the difference. It's cleaner defensively, the depth of pitching. And that's pretty much it. I mean, hitting's hard at every level. So it's not that you're going to see, and like you said, it's a small sample size, but even for us this year, we were very similar personnel-wise. I wouldn't say last year at LIU Post, we had some big boppers in the lineup, but for the most part, we scrap, we run, and that was a similar personality we were going to have this year. So I think the main thing is really that on the defensive side, depth of pitching, and then balls just aren't dropping in the outfield like they do sometimes in Division II. But with that said, high level Division II, because both of our programs were top 25 last year, so you're playing in some high level games. You can't really tell the difference. But the thing is, once you get off of that high level Division II, that's where you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably drops off, pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, it depends. I think especially maybe up here in the Northeast, right, within the conference or just the region, sometimes the level of play kind of, you start to see a decline. But when you talk about some of those other conferences, right, in the South, those Division II programs they're legit, man. They're just.
Yeah, you go down the Sunshine State Conference, Peach Belts. Yeah, all you got to do is look at the draft board. When the draft's over, you see those guys getting plucked.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we saw it last year when we played you guys, Mike, and then we go up and play Southern New Hampshire. You're seeing even arms out of the pen, especially Southern New Hampshire, right? Those guys just keep coming at you.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different level of depth, and we saw them again this year. That these guys know how to pitch. I mean, and just think about it. If you throw 90 miles an hour, every D1 school wants you, and that's if you don't get drafted, right? So the pros want you too. So for them to trickle down to Division II, sometimes it's hard. That's why we just don't have the depth. We have the one or two guys, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so Mike, one thing, just so the audience knows too, like, we just got the job at New York Tech last year. You're a guy, probably the number one guy. I know me personally. I'll call you and lean on you for advice from all your experience. And we've had a couple of good laughs, and I really love talking baseball with you, especially being a fellow shortstop. Mm-hmm. But how about the one thing we talked about was like what kids wear or how they act on recruiting visits. Being my first year last year, I was in shock at like the clothing they would wear, just the lack of effort to even look presentable. And then I asked you about it. I called you and we talked about it a couple times. You had some good stories too, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of, and it's hard because when you bring a kid on campus, you really want the kid, obviously, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing how they can actually not rub you the wrong way, but you look at them differently as soon as like you see them. You still want them to a certain, but it's like you start questioning your own evaluation. But yeah, I've had kids come. I tell them, hey, we're gonna walk the campus. You might be prepared, and they show up in sandals. I had one guy show up with his girlfriend.
This is the good one.
Yeah, showed up with his girlfriend, and then when we were about to talk money, I'm like, hey, do you want to have her leave the room? Or it's like, no, she's good. And I was like, okay, 16-year-old girl here about to hear my scholarship offer.
Didn't you say there was some like heavy petting going on as well?
Yeah. Oh, there was hand holding the whole way. It's a big campus over there, and we had hand holding, we had hugging. I think there was a kiss in the library. Yeah, it was bizarre. It was bizarre.
Did you almost want to say, you know what? Let me not even make an offer to this kid.
A little bit, but he was good.
I love the honesty.
Yeah, but some things are. But then there's that kid, and I might be tipping my hand here, but then there's that kid who you think all right, I'm gonna offer him this amount of scholarship, and he comes in dressed to the nines. And he impresses the heck out of you. And then when it's time to give the offer, he may have just scored himself an extra couple of grand just because of the way he presented himself. So it goes both ways, for sure.
Hey, we've been in that position, right, Chris?
Absolutely, yeah.
We say to like Frank, we go, that wasn't the number. He's like, I liked him a lot. I like his family. That's a big deal.
I used to do that all the time. All the time. And even to I wouldn't even tell my assistants the number. If I had in my head, I'm like, all right, I'm going to give this guy X amount, and then but when it came down to give the offer, I added 2 or 3 just because I was impressed by him.
Right.
And then my first year, I actually didn't offer a kid because of the way he spoke to his mother, and I told him like, hey, thanks for coming, and he was looking at me like I thought we were gonna talk numbers, and I was like, I'll call you.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's good for people to hear.
Absolutely.
It's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just disturbing that the kids. You want the kids to be relaxed and be themselves, but you also don't want them to let their guard down to the point of like, we all know if you're going to treat your mother a certain way in front of a coach, you're probably going to treat your teammates and your coaches not very well in the next 4 years.
Yeah, if you can't even fake it for a couple minutes.
Right. Exactly.
You have no restraint, and
mm-hmm.
That's yeah, Mike. Do you find too? I mean, I find like the lack of the kids like excitement. Like we'll bring a kid in a hotel room, say, "Hey, man, do you want to play? We have an opening in left field, and we're thinking about putting you out there." And they're just like, "Yeah, all right, whatever." They don't even get excited, or we'll have kids that we'll bring in January. Maybe there's some money left over, and a kid's working hard, and you give them a little bit of a scholarship, and they look at you like, "All right, thanks, whatever."
Yeah.
And like, really, we just helped you. I don't know. The lack of excitement is just, I don't know.
And I think sometimes I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They don't know how to handle that news. Sometimes it might be beyond them. And then you
Yeah.
give news to the kid that really is grateful, and he gets up teary-eyed and gives you a hug, and that's where you're like, wait a minute, so and so, I just gave the same news, and he said thanks and walked out of the office. Where this guy's getting emotional and giving me a hug, like that's the reaction that is warranted there.
Yeah.
But then there are some kids that don't realize the gravity of financials also.
I think what you said, we do the same thing. We give them the benefit of the doubt. They don't have that like people skill, which is a problem. But they don't know how to react. And I think sometimes maybe they think maybe inside they're jumping for joy, but they're trying to be real cool about it. But I just find it's a very interesting coaching at the college level, and it's fun, and it's the different personalities are pretty cool,
Yeah.
But I have a question for you, and Chris, this is you'll know. So last year we were very close to playing you in the Super Regional. Like it was lining up where we were going to come head to head on Long Island. Did you ever think about like what that would have been like? I don't know if I would have liked it.
I would have hated it. I'm going to be very honest with you. I would have hated because I didn't like as much as I enjoyed coaching against you guys. I didn't like playing against you. You understand? Right. There's like a difference. I think I don't, and maybe because we've been in that rivalry, and I was on it on both sides, and it's just as intense on both sides.
Oh yeah.
You realize like how serious and the gravity of the situation, and then add on top, you guys, if you beat us, you're shutting down our program. We're not coming back next year to get you back. Like we're done. So I actually not so much anymore, but this past summer, and it still does creep into my mind because I'll tell you a quick little story. We beat Southern New Hampshire that Friday to go to Saturday for the regional final. Just have to beat them once. All right. So my AD at the time called me that night and said, "Hey, do you want to host next weekend?" And I said, "We're not having this conversation right now."
Oh boy!
Next week. Just put the whammy on you.
Yeah.
And she did say, she's like, "I know, I understand, like, but we have to figure this out because, the region and whoever the site supervisors were, like, they needed to know what would be the where we would go because you guys were trying. You're like, hey, we'll take it. We got turf. We'll host these guys, no problem." And the last thing I wanted to do was play you guys at your place because I wanted to get you guys on grass. I wanted to get you on dirt. I wanted to get you in our big ballpark. Obviously, it played to our advantage.
Right.
So had that conversation, didn't feel good about it. And the next day, we show up to the park and we have our I don't want to say our ace because he wasn't our ace, but he ended up being our best pitcher, Josh Loshorn, about to take the mound. And we just had this energy, this confidence. We knew we were going to beat them. And I was feeling good.
Well, he hasn't lost a game in his career, right?
No, he still hasn't.
So
so
you got to feel confident. I mean, and we can attest the kid was lights out.
Yeah, and he's a next level kid. So he's warm up in the bullpen, and long story short, our guys get done with their infield outfield, jumping up, and they look down, and he's getting carted off of the out of the bullpen. So when I saw him go down, and I saw him getting helped up to his feet, I was like, that damn conversation last night, the baseball guys struck down on us, and we ended up losing too because, and it's no fault of anyone else who ended up pitching that day, but you guys played it. We were a consistent, confident group, and that was the first time. I mean, we could all imagine coming off the field, expecting to win, having your best guy on the mound, and you see him getting literally helped off like he can't walk. So imagine that, Jimmy, coming off after you throw your ball coming in, throw it to first. Yeah, let's go. And what happened to Josh?
No, and you're not playing like any slouch. You're playing a great team.
Exactly. That's the other thing. That you have to play a great game to beat them.
Right.
And, we didn't really hit that weekend either. But to go back to your question, I think about it a lot, and it would have been such a spectacle.
Yeah, right. With think about the fans, right?
Yeah, as a fan, I was hoping, I was rooting for that.
Yeah. And a part of me was too, because I think outside of us being so close on a personal level, it would have been it might have rivaled any playing coaching experience we ever been in because of the situation.
That's what I was worried about, because I can't believe how my nerves are in a game. I've never been so uncomfortable in baseball other than being a coach.
Yep.
And to be in that environment, I mean, all the alumni would have been on both sides.
Yep.
It would have been crazy.
And you would have had the local spotlights. Even the local media would have jumped on it, I'm sure. And it's a route that at Post, it gets a little rowdy because there's really no seating. So, like, the people just end up just being places where you don't expect them. And yeah, I mean, we can only dream of it now. But I remember playing there as a player at Tech, and the football team at Post coming down and like yelling at us and heckling us. So it was never an easy place.
Yeah, I remember getting heckled big time when we would go over to Post as a player.
Yeah.
Chris, do you think it would have been nuts or what?
Clearly, it would have been nuts. And I was definitely looking forward to playing Post in the Super Regionals. I think it would have been something that we could have talked about for a long time, considering the history and the rivalry between the two clubs and, being so close to each other and, us having a relationship with Mike, what obviously would have been somebody was going to have to go home disappointed, but at the end of the day, it would have been something pretty historical, a storybook type, especially when you think about, our relationships. But, the other thing is I felt like we had unfinished business with them too. So I want another crack at them. So.
Yeah, so you were rooting for it.
Yeah, I was looking forward to that opportunity, but unfortunately they couldn't pull it out.
Yeah, I don't think I was necessarily against it, but I wasn't sure what I wanted. I was really torn. But like I was getting to before, I just feel like you get those alumni and you get them drinking in the parking lot and tailgating and get everybody there. I think it would have been arguably the biggest rivalry event in the history of Long Island because of the ramifications. Because it wasn't just to win a championship between each other, it was to go to the World Series. And Mike, you mentioned it before too, and I don't think people understood that. We have to explain that a little bit, that the Division II program was ending that day. You guys were transitioning to Division I. You mentioned it earlier. And so when you said before that it was going to shut down the program, like that was the end of LIU Post Division II baseball program that you were the head coach of.
Yeah, it was it was essentially the end of CW Post baseball.
CW Post. Yeah.
Yeah, because the green and gold, the Pioneers, the green and gold versus the blue and gold Tech Post rivalry was over, and I think just the heaviness of the rivalry, if it was to be on that stage with, like Chris said, with those stakes of a college World Series, here we are, literally, we might be able to throw a baseball to each other's campus, and we're playing for a national, one of the last 8 national spots. It was a pretty heavy thing, and I'm pretty sure we would have beat you guys. So. I mean, I'm happy. So I do wish that we got to that point, because I think our pitching was so good that it would have gave us a nice little run to the College World Series. But if we couldn't make it, I'm happy you guys could.
Yeah, I just, the one thing I will say, we were hot. We were running hot, but
pitching always wins.
Well, what's funny is I had asked Mike. He was actually he's good at throwing jabs, because I think I mentioned at some point during the summertime when it was all done. About the brackets, because he was on the opposite end, right? So he mentioned, yeah, if we were in your bracket, we would have, made it to the Supers also. I go, yeah, but we wouldn't have lost to SNU. I said,
yeah.
Well, Chris, you know what you were saying the whole time. I remember as it was playing out, you thought it was going to be pretty good for our conference, obviously, to have ECC represent the finalists in the region. That would have been
Right.
pretty good feather in the cap for the conference as well. Mike, I want to get into. I know, like your summer ball experience. You mentioned it earlier was very impactful. Let's get into that a little bit. I know Chris is like a really. This is probably his biggest pet peeve is at our school when we ask a kid if they want to go away. Inevitably, everybody wants to, and then we get them on a team, which is not an easy thing to do. And we've had many kids back out, and they're told pretty much don't ever ask again because of the ramifications of that for us trying to place people in the future. But yeah, talk about your time in Ohio and whatnot.
Yeah, that experience and how important that was to you.
Yeah, so I may have said this earlier. I know I was thinking it, but I may have said, but I'll say it again. And during that time when Brian and I were at Tech, there weren't any guys that we were on the same team with over the last couple of years that we played with that went away to play. And then that one fall, Brian, I remember us coming together say, how come we can't go away and play? And then we asked Hirsch, and he said, yeah, of course you can if you want to. We haven't had someone want to in a while. And I think, Chris, you might have been the last guy 5 years before, right? So it was something. I think we had a core group of guys on our team that really wanted to advance our game, take it off just to see how good we all thought we were good. We wanted to see how good we were in an environment surrounding ourselves with really good players and away from our comfort zone. I think that's something that nowadays kids don't realize. You have to get out of your comfort zone to see the type of player you really are. So luckily, me, Brian, and I think a couple other guys were assigned to teams that summer. We all had good years, so it was easy to justify us going away to these good leagues. And I think, Brian, me and you might have been the only ones that actually ended up going away, whether it was us the only ones being healthy or whatever. But yeah, I remember going there, and I remember them saying, and when I say them, Hirsch and Butch Caulfield, who actually made some calls and got us assigned to these teams, them saying I'd be going by myself. And I remember not even batting an eye at it and thinking like, oh, I didn't know I could have gone with a teammate, but I didn't care because I'm going on my own. I knew it'd be a little uncomfortable, but it is what it is. And that's one thing you always see now when when guys say they want to go away to play ball, but like, hey, can I go with so-and-so? Or you tell them you got them at place on the team. Oh, who else is going? Well, no, it's just you. It doesn't work like that. I was just happy to be able to have a job or have a spot on a team somewhere else. So when I get there, I'm the only guy coming from New York Tech. So I didn't realize I had a New York accent yet until I went away to Ohio, all right, with a bunch of Midwest guys and Southern guys who are, I say ball. Now I say ball probably more like them, but back, I'm saying ball, and things like that. So automatically I stuck out like a sore thumb, and I wasn't used to that. But then when our first day of practice, I went to shortstop, and I was there with the Michigan shortstop for University of Michigan.
In Michigan country, right?
What's that?
And that's in Michigan country.
Big Ten country,
exactly.
Or Big Ten country, yes.
Yeah, Big Ten country. So we were, I go up, I'm taking ground balls with them, and I'm looking at them like, I'm just as good as this guy, Then next thing you know, they're like, Gaffney, go to second. So, as a shortstop, that bothers you. So I go to second, and it's me and another guy there, and I'm doing fine. And I'm basically thinking, all right, I guess I'm a second baseman. And then I heard that from a guy who played on the team last year. It's like, oh, our starting second baseman from last year, this kid at Vanderbilt, is going to be here in a couple of weeks. He just needed a couple of weeks off in between, the SEC tournament, regional, wherever he was. And that burned me up. Just thinking, I'm like, wait, now I'm going to second because the second baseman isn't here yet. So in that little 2-week time, we played some exhibition games, and I really proved myself and led off and was the best player on the team at that point. And when the Vanderbilt kid did come, credit to our coach, he didn't start him because I just outplayed him. And, when you don't show, that's the other thing you see now. Oh, I need some time off. I need a break between my college season and my summer season. And meanwhile, we go back to, you want to play professional baseball, you need a break. Or you want to play professional baseball, you can't go away. You got to stay home to get a job. Well, all those leagues out there can get you a job if money is an issue. But I was having such a good year, and I really came into my own, and it was such an amazing experience. I remember laying in bed at night and just being so locked in, more locked in than I ever been, because all you had to do was you're on your own, and at that age, all you need is some peanut butter jelly, some cold cuts, and you got your 3 meals for the day. I was in a great situation where I was living at the time. I had a condo type place. A doctor who didn't even live there had it. And I remember talking to my dad one night, and he's like, "How you like it?" I'm like, "I love every bit of this. But there's only one thing I wish I had a guy from New York Tech with me that could share the experience so they could see how cool it is." Because I remember always getting calls and telling guys like, "Oh, it's awesome." They're like, "Yeah, right. You're in Ohio." But then the next morning, Brian called me asking how I liked it. And I was like, "I love it." He's like, "I think I'm coming out there." So I guess at the time we had an outfielder not performing. And that's the other thing. If you're not performing at those leagues, they let you go. You get cut. And they're looking for the next best guy. And Brian obviously he probably the best outfielder that we would have had if he was on the team. He was available after his little stint. And he came out, and it was a blast. He lived with me, the 2 New York Tech guys who were under the radar going in. I couldn't play short because the Michigan guy. Now we're batting 1-2. Brian's leading off. I'm batting second. We're the 2 best guys on the team.
You guys might have been under the radar based on, because you came from New York Tech, but you had to be the 2 best looking guys on the team, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, the story with that was, of course, Gaff and I wanted to go away. We knew it was going to help us in our career. So I was supposed to go to Michigan, my team in Michigan, same league. And my junior year, I had a really good year. And I said, you know what? I want to try to go to the Cape Cod League. So I was emailing every team in the league, my stats. Finally, I get a response. It was the day before I was supposed to fly to Michigan. So I had a flight in the morning. The Brewster Whitecaps reached out to me and said, you know what? You could try. Come tomorrow. Be here tomorrow morning. You could try out. So I had a decision to make. Do I, I have my flight. I have a spot on this team. Or do I drive to Cape Cod in the morning, try out for this team? At that time, and still is, right? It's the top college players in the country. But I was like, you know what? I had the confidence to say, I'm going to go up there. I'm going to show them something. So I drove up that morning. I mean, I got basically, the 4.5 hour drive, left at 5 a.m. Got there by 10 o'clock when they were holding the first practice, really, but it was a tryout for me. And just really I guess, showed them something with that tryout. They gave me a temporary roster spot, which was like a 2-week contract. Wound up staying there for 2.5 weeks. I was second on the team in hitting. But a guy from Team USA, Matt Carson, who wound up being a big leaguer, had gotten cut from Team USA, came on. I was the only guy without a contract. So they sent me home. Still an awesome experience, but came home, was playing with the ACBL, but it just wasn't, after having that experience of being away and being in that environment with some of the top players in the country, I was like, I wanted more. And, Gaff was pumping me up out in Lima. They had a need, and it worked out. And, of course, what helped kind of seal the deal was Gaff telling me about the living arrangement. He had this, crazy apartment. And
yeah, but let me ask you something. As you're saying that, Brian, I don't mean to cut you off, but if, say, the living arrangement sucked, would you have gone anyway?
Yeah, I would have. Yeah, I would have. Yeah.
I think that's important because you know why, Jim? Like some of the, Gaff was talking about, and you mentioned how hard it is to get guys or place guys, or how guys say they want to go away, and then when you set them up, well, I heard that place isn't that good. Well, what does it matter? You said you want to go away. I mean, this is your own experience. Make your own experience,
And I tell all the guys like who I coach now, this game of baseball it's blessing you with stories beyond, and the longer you play, the more stories you get. So wherever you're sent, you're going to get a really good story, and it's going to be a great chapter of your baseball life. So the next summer I went back to Lima because I had such a good had a good year, and I had Cape Cod.
As you're talking about stories, you're telling me because you're fast forwarding to next year. there weren't any great stories between you and Brian while you were there?
But I'm just going to give you, keeping it in context. The next year, I went to Lima, and I had a horrible living situation. I was in an apartment, but I still had the same great experience, you know? And so, yes, there are a lot of stories that me and Brian have. But we'll save those for another time.
Yeah. We weren't too far from Ohio State, so that's terrible.
That sounds like a conversation for when the women and children aren't around.
But, I think, it was so beneficial for us for that experience, and it really set us up to get a feel for what pro ball was all about. Being in that small town, middle of nowhere, and being a New Yorker, I mean, it's different out there.
Yeah.
And that's how, most times when you're playing in these small minor league cities, that's how it is. And living with host families and being away from home. So I think, it really benefited us in that experience. And more times than not, I feel like kids nowadays, our local college players, they don't want to play or what, they make up every excuse, and I'm just going to get my at bat. So I have to work. You have to sacrifice. If you want to play professional baseball, you have to sacrifice maybe having that job in the summer or during the season. And, it depends. Not that it's, if you want to make money, that's your decision, but it's going to affect you down the line if you truly want to be a professional baseball player, and have the best opportunity.
All right. Well, not only that, I mean, and I'm sure every club does it differently, and maybe Mike, you've done it differently in the past, but we tell the guys, if we set you up and you back out, a phone call will never be made again on your behalf. That's it. That's your opportunity. Yeah. You don't want it. There's other resources. The resources are thin sometimes, but you gotta maintain your integrity and your relationship with the guys that you reach out to, and you got other kids coming in who do want to go away, and you can't waste some of those contacts on guys who are wishy-washy or just not really clear on what they want to do. So.
And that's a life lesson for them. They might think that you're screwing them or something, but it's a life lesson. If you're gonna, for lack of a better term, if you're gonna burn me and put my reputation on the line, then why would I help you out against it? And they should take that lesson for the rest of their life.
Right. We had a kid this spring come in and change his mind, right, Jim?
Yeah. And then he changed it again a day later when he saw our reaction.
But at the year before, you were on the collegians, right?
Yeah, in ACBL.
Year, I was a sophomore, so I didn't get picked for the collegians. You could only have
four guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't get picked. So
where'd you play?
I had to go play for the Brooklyn Cadets.
Okay, but you're in the ACBL.
I was in the ACBL, but our home field for the most part
was St. John's, right?
No. We had a few games at St. John's in Fordham, but for the most part it was Staten Island. So Staten Island College of Staten Island. So I had driving to Staten Island, which was, I don't know if
that's fun on a daily basis.
You'd rather be in a small town in the Midwest.
Yeah. But that's what I needed to do. I mean, I couldn't sit here and play in a Long Island College League. I had to get those at bats in the ACBL.
Well, and the thing is this, like, just think about you telling your story, how here you are at New York Tech, a mid-major in the Northeast, right? Both of you guys. And then, Mike's playing alongside top guys in the country going, all right, I'm definitely playing pro ball, or I can handle anything and I can compete at a high level. And then, Brian, you're telling stories how, a guy getting cut from Team USA affected your Cape Cod League roster. Like that alone, like how many guys from our area even where that affects you, And I remember you guys came out to see me play because I was right down the road from you guys. Well, I guess, how far was I away from you guys in Akron?
A couple hours, right?
Wasn't there a situation where you guys had like a rough ride back or something?
So let me tell that story. I neglected to tell that.
Yeah.
So when Brian Lima, Ohio isn't Cleveland or Cincinnati. It's like in the middle of nowhere. So there's no airport you can fly into and like I just come pick you up. So I don't know, Brian, how you got there, but you got to Akron, and Jimmy was playing in Double A at the time, and I had to drive from Lima. It was actually 3 hours from Lima to Akron.
To pick up Brian?
3 hours. Yeah. So Lima is like in the northwest corner.
That's a good teammate right there.
I needed some New York blood with me. So Lima's in the northwest corner and Akron's in the northeast corner. So I had to drive across Ohio. And I was tight with some guys on the team. And Brian, you remember, I showed up with a carload of guys because I told them, like, there's not much to do in Lima. So I was like, hey, I'm going to go pick up my buddy. We're going to watch his brother playing a Double A game. And they're like, yeah, let's go. So we drove there. And Jimmy, that's where I got the bug. Like, I always wanted to play professional baseball, but watching Jimmy and BP, we got there early for BP, and I think you took us down to the clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I just remember you going through the bats. I was like, you get to pick whatever bat, and they let you, you don't have to pay for it. And Jimmy's like, yes, this is pro baseball, man. You take this is all yours. So I just remember being like, wow, this is what I want to do. And
that place was awesome too. Akron was a big time.
Yeah, well, that's a great stadium in ground. Yeah. It's below ground level.
And your team was loaded too.
Oh yeah.
So, but then when we left at like 11 o'clock after your game, driving 3 hours, and most of those roads were like country roads with no lights. And I don't know how we didn't go into a ditch at one point. Like we had like a guardian angel over us, because like the lights went out, something happened. I just remember the guys yelling in the car when we got back on the road. That's what I remember.
Yeah, I remember you guys had like a little life-changing experience there.
Yeah,
so did you fall asleep at the wheel or something?
No, it wasn't. I think the guys were busting my chops, and by accident I like hit my lights off because I was trying to mess with them. And I think I lost control of the car or something.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was a bad situation.
Oh, my God. That's crazy. No, but overall, that's what it's all about. You go out there, you get uncomfortable, and then 3 days in, you're comfortable, right? And you got new friends, and it's like anything else.
And you just see what you see what you're made of. You see what you're. I mean, looking back, that was a game changer in my development as a player. Because you're not only justifying to yourself that, hey, I can play with these guys, but now you got coaches who are looking at you like, hey, you're pretty damn good. How'd you end up at New York Tech? That type of thing. And meanwhile, all the Tech guys, we had this pride to us. Well, that blue collar mentality of like, yeah, well, we're all good at New York Tech. Don't think, why do you think we're not good? We had that chip on our shoulder. And so then that's another motivating piece when I'm out there. Like, oh, I want to show out for New York Tech too.
Yeah, I got to represent.
Yeah. So and that was, Hirsch was awesome at that. He was a master motivator too. So he had us thinking like that. And we fed off of that all the time.
All right. That sense of pride. You know what? That's lacking, I think, in today's athlete also, right? That pride that you hold for whoever it is you're
because everything's so individualistic now. Now you're representing the instructor you had your whole life in the cage. I want to show out for John Doe, who's taught me how to hit for the last 10 years. It's disturbing.
That's a good point.
Hey, one of the things I did want to also talk about was Gaff, about your athletic background, because the first time I actually had met you was at Tech playing basketball, like we all used to do back in the day. I used to come back and play basketball with Mike Brown and Khalil, and we used to always hit the gym there during free hour. And I remember we were playing against you were on the opposite team. I can't remember who else was like kind of running with us at that day, but you all of a sudden went up for a rebound, and I couldn't believe how high up off the ground you got. And it was just like, holy cow, this kid super athletic. Talk about, because you were a basketball player at Kellenberg too, right? Wasn't that like one of your favorite sports?
And Mike, before you even go, I just want to piggyback with that, because I was going to ask similar thing, so you can do it all at once. Was that our philosophy with teaching baseball and the summer team and this podcast is being a product of your environment. Add to that, your environment playing the other sports, but your dad was a professional. Your brother, after you, becomes a professional. I mean, you grew up with an athletic family, like just so the audience knows, like that's the other, attack it from that end too.
Yeah, so I think we definitely had an athletic family. I had cousins who played in the ACC. I had another cousin who was the starting quarterback at Hofstra. So, but we were never thought of ourselves as like a jock family, if that makes sense. We just like getting out and running around and you know, playing basketball on the street or going up to the park playing basketball. But you know, and the credit to my father, and you guys know him well. He was never. You would never know he played professional baseball, right? If you just meet him. You, even growing up, he never spoke to me or gave me any instruction in baseball outside of just the basic stuff when you're a kid, like how to throw, how to catch, how to swing a bat. Yep. In college, he was never the guy. We all see it now. The dads and everyone with their, you know, getting film of their kids so they could break it down over the dinner table. You know, like that was never nothing like that happened. The only thing my dad ever told me about baseball was like, hey, just don't think out there. And when I was a kid, I didn't understand that. Now, of course, we all understand what he's saying.
Right.
But my dad played soccer in college. My dad was a all-county basketball player. So he was I think I always thought of myself as an athlete rather than a baseball player or a basketball player. And that was kind of the way we were brought up. And the importance of, I mean, I think this speaks to, and I think all of us are in the same boat. I never played for one of these big summer programs when I was in high school. I played on the local Long Island Red Sox team that my uncle, Frank Palmieri, ran, and then my dad took over. And between myself and my brother's years, my brother Scott, who was drafted, there was 4 of us who were drafted. One of them was a big leaguer just out of that team. John Lannon played for the Long Island Red Sox. All right. So the reason I bring them up, you know, the Tigers and the Yankees, those are the teams that are playing 60, 70 games in a summer. The Red Sox, we played 35 because I was playing summer basketball. All right. I wanted to play summer basketball because I enjoyed it, maybe even enjoyed it more than I did baseball at the time. And that part made me so much better of an athlete on the baseball field because just the movements, the angles.
Right.
Just all of that, just the little intricacies, you know, going out for a cut and just knowing how to get your body in the right position to get off the best throw. You know, that's where I value, and I see it all the time. Like, and you guys do too. The kids that maybe aren't at that, especially the guys who end up being high level Division II kids, aren't highly recruited, right? Because they're not on, if they're not on that top organization or they're not at the top of their ability at that point, it's because they're going to have that much more time to reach that potential rather than the kid who might be topping out as a senior in high school. So that's the way I was in high school. I mean, outside of Hirsch, I had St. John's offer me a little bit of money. Providence was going to have me on a visit before they shut down the program. But Hirschfield was the only one that brought me in and broke down exactly how my career would play out. And that's exactly how it did. Because obviously he was experienced enough to know that, you know, being the complete athlete it was going to help me in the long run. But yeah, I remember those basketball games, Chris. Those are good times.
Fun. We actually wound up getting into men's league together.
Chris and I won a championship a few years ago.
Yeah. We did.
What did he say?
Oh, you can't hear me?
No, we can hear you.
No, I hear you now.
I said, yeah, we won that championship thanks to your brother, Scotty. You want to talk about sick athlete?
You know, it is like just listening to like all you guys talk and like and people that, you know, did what we did. There's an inner confidence, right? A little calmness about sports and a super like competitive streak, like a fire in our belly.
Oh man, yeah,
that's everybody has.
Well, that's what I wake up in the morning for. Still, so
just that competitive drive that we all have, you know.
And just talking about athletes, Brian. I don't know if you remember, we would have slam dunk contests. Like if we had practice, Brian was judging them. He wasn't participating.
Yeah, I was not that.
But myself, Khalil, Kenny Henderson, who actually literally took down the main backboard in the gym during one of these dunk contests. We would like have dunk contests in our free time. Like we would throw the ball up, catch it one hand, dunk it.
So Hirsch would walk into the gym and tell you to cut that crap out, otherwise he's gonna pull your scholarship.
It would depend on what mood Hirsch was in. If Hirsch was in a playful mood, he'd watch. but that's the other thing that you don't see, and that's the part. You don't see that type of athlete playing baseball at our level anymore.
Right.
Or it's few and far between. Like we had 5 or 6 guys that could easily dunk a basketball. It's not.
Kenny was a tremendous athlete.
Yeah.
He was a hockey player.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the Willie Dersh of New York Tech baseball.
Right. and Richie Roth was a great basketball player.
Richie Roth, yeah.
Even Steve Robbins could play around.
Even Needham,
yeah.
Needham, that was his name. Yeah. Gary, right? Is that his name?
Yeah,
Gary?
Gary, point guard. He was the starting point guard for Lehigh, you know? So you just don't come across that athlete anymore. But then when you go to professional baseball, you do see that athlete.
Oh man, it's sick. Especially when you find a basketball hoop somewhere in like a gym for morning lift, right?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. You go on the road, you go to the lifts, next thing you know, and it's half the pitching staff is in there dunking the ball. Mm-hmm. You know?
Oh, yeah.
It's not just the shortstop center fielder.
Now, you know what, you mentioned Hirsch, like, you know, I guess how he talked to you about how your career was going to play out. He was good that way. You know, if you think about all 4 of us on this call right now, you know, he had that uncanny ability to kind of look at a kid and look, you know, see 3-4 years down the line, you know, what a kid's potential was, you know?
He told me, and Mike Hirschfield, his son, loves this story, and I told him back when we were in college, he brought me in and said, you're going to be a shortstop. Meanwhile, I'm a high school kid playing shortstop. I had a few really good players on my high school team. A few of us were drafted. Reed Gorecki made the big leagues. But I was like the second or third best because Tommy Merkel was on my team too. So I was like the second or third best kid on my high school team. So he called me in and said, "Hey, you're gonna be my starting shortstop." And I was like, "Wow, okay." Meanwhile, you know, Blanky at St. John's like, "Yeah, you might play second. You know, we'll see how it works out." He's so sure of it. He's like, "Your freshman year, you're gonna have a senior. Hey, you might win the job, but you'll definitely get enough at bats where you're gonna know. You might even you'll start maybe half the games, which I ended up doing." By your sophomore year, you're going to be our starter. By your junior year, you're going to be one of the best players in the Northeast. You might get drafted. And by your senior year, you'll be out of here as a draft pick. And I was like, draft? Like I never even thought of that. I never thought about getting drafted. I was still thinking about playing basketball in college at that point. So like it was so far, and it wasn't hype either. I knew he wasn't blowing smoke because we all know when you sit in a room with that man as a player to coach. Because not too many people get to see that player to coach conversation with Hirsch. He's shooting to you straight, and he's not going to sugarcoat anything. So, it was just, and my career literally ended up happening like that. My junior year, I was ABCA All Northeast, first team All Northeast shortstop, and I ended up getting drafted. You know, it was, he mapped out, he predicted everything. I wish he could have predicted my GPA a little higher. Maybe that would have helped.
One day we'll get him on here, and Mike, maybe we'll have you on too. We'll just, you know.
Oh yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah, it'd be fun. But you know, the one thing that I think we all learned from him too, and I'm glad we kind of don't recruit against you anymore, is like every time we were on the recruiting trail last year.
Good Lord.
So annoying.
That first year? Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, he was killing us, but he was seeing something in players that we thought we were the only ones.
Right.
And we were like, Mike, you here to see so and so?
Then on top it off, like we remember. I think you probably remember this, Jim. We're sitting in the office with Kat, and Kat's like, "What the hell?" And I'm like, I go, he's a good recruiter, guys. I go, that's the other thing. You got to tip your hat. I mean, he knows how to close the deal too. So.
Yeah, and I don't know.
But wasn't it cool? Like here we are recruiting the same kids basically. But not all of them, but we had but we were the only 2 really involved in those kids.
Yeah.
So like people were passing on kids, and I mean whether it was me and Jimmy or me and Chris, Brian, we'd be looking at each other like, are we really the only ones that are seeing this? You know? And I'm happy EJ Exposito panned out the way he did this year. He got off to a great start. But he was one of those guys where we just could not believe that no one else was looking at him.
Forget no one else. How wasn't there a really good mid-major not looking at him?
Yeah.
How does that kid slip to the Division II in the Northeast? Look, obviously, we pride ourselves, to be a good program, and we are a good program. So he's not beyond what we are as either coaches or as a team right now, but he's definitely capable of playing in any single mid-major in this country.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but that goes back to our environment we grew up in the minor leagues, right? We know what players look like, I think, more than most, and that's where the experience comes in, and I think that gets overlooked.
Mike, when we had Scout Day this year, there's a few things. There was a few takeaways. One, there was some, the kids that we brought in, they clearly had some tools that were attractive, and and some of the scouts took notice. But as it relates to Exposito, there were scouts walking away from that event saying to themselves, "How did we miss this kid when we were watching Ohapi every day? And how do we not pick up on this kid?" Like they were kicking themselves, they kind of, they didn't pay enough attention,
Right.
Well, and I will let everybody know that your graciousness and kindness and willingness to help us when we got the job over at your alma mater and being our top competitor is something I'll never forget personally.
I won't forget it either.
But yeah, we did bring our rings to show you.
Yeah. If I know what I know now, maybe I wouldn't have been so generous.
But no, I can't thank you enough for, and I'll continue to lean on you. And before we go, I also want to do one. I have a podcast planned where I bring you and maybe like PJ Antoniato, and I want to break down the shortstop or middle infield position, talk about every in and out about it. And if you would come on, that would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I got teachers driving by honking horns right now. But just to go, and before we go, I did want to mention this, that we talk about culture of programs, and we, us as players, college players, we only know our experience at New York Tech. But one of the things that motivated me to become a pro, and Brian, obviously being around your brother all the time, you could speak to this to a certain point, having you guys come back to work out with us and your energy, Chris and Jimmy, your openness to teach us and talk to us about your experience was something that drove me to want to be a pro. Like, obviously, Jimmy, when I saw you in Akron taking ground balls in BP, showing off and stuff, I was like, damn, I want that. But that relationship we had in order for me to get there meant a lot. And I think that what Hirsch had at Tech, having guys come back, I got to take ground balls with Jimmy whenever he came, and I got to see, I see him. He's really smooth. I want to be that smooth. Or when Chris was throwing in live in the cage, you had some kids dipping out, not looking for a bat. I was fighting to get a bat because I'm like, I want to get a hit off him because I want to be able to say I just got a hit off a guy in AA, AAA. Like that type of competitive nature and culture, like that really drives a program. And I hope that, you guys are able to do that now that we're out of the picture.
No, listen, I really, being around that stuff is what it's all about. I sometimes you get lucky and you're around it, and some kids aren't around it, and it's very unfortunate. So, and I like that you said that because that's the message we preach, number one.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I guess that should do it for this time. I really appreciate you taking the time, Mike. I know you're really busy during this quarantine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff I really would rather be doing right now.
Well, you got those two good-looking boys now, right?
Yeah, two studs that climb the walls. I would stay on here till 10 o'clock tonight.
No, we could talk.
We probably could.
We just have to think
man,
about
I appreciate you getting on. One of the things
Yeah.
about Mike too that you don't know, Jim, he's a better friend than you are because me and you were teammates, but you never reached out to me when I was in minor leagues. Meanwhile, Mike would always ping me and send me an email every once in a while.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we didn't really keep in touch much, right, Chris?
You were so, you were to yourself. You're too good for me at that time.
Hey, in all honesty, I was trying to get Chris to bring me to Scottsdale during spring training. He never brought me though.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we did drift apart, Chris. We did, but we've come back better than ever, baby.
Stronger. I was stronger.
Oh yeah.
Stronger apart.
I don't like pictures.
All right. Well, hey, Mike, man, thanks a lot, dude. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in, and until next time.